Good morning and welcome to the Barber and Cosmetology webinar on the new rules, chapters 7, 8, and 10. I am Jo Donlin. I'm the Director of Regulatory Outreach and Education, and I want to welcome everybody this bright, windy, early Monday morning to this event. We are really pleased to welcome people from all over the state. These rules have been in progress for quite a while, and we have a lot of stakeholder input and a lot of good discussions about what they were and what they are now. But the hope is, at this point, that they are more concise, easier to understand, and that some of the barriers to licensure have been removed. So with that, I will turn it over to Ophelia Durand. She's the Program Director for the Office of Barber and Cosmetology Licensure. Ophelia?
Thank you, Jo. Good morning and welcome, everyone. I am Ophelia Durand, the Program Director for this office. Today with me, I also have Kathy Durand. She's our Program Supervisor for this office. We welcome you all. The purpose of this webinar is to highlight key changes to rules or chapters 7, 8, and 10. In this webinar, we hope to educate the regulated community and any individual licensee who may be interested in knowing and understanding these rules. This webinar and the one held on February 28th that covered chapters 2, 3, and 9 will be posted on our website in the near future. Please look for that.
I'm showing that some individuals may not be receiving audio. If everybody can raise their hand if they can hear us. Okay, I'm seeing a couple hands raised.
Can you hear us out there? Please raise your hand. One more time. Are people good?
Mm-hmm. They seem to be. And enforce the law. The rules are created by our state agency, and this is the topic of our discussion today. They are limited to implementing and clarifying the statute, and they must relate to the statute. They have the same force of law as the rules have the same force of law. What's important to note is that as you're reviewing the rules, anytime you see pursuant to section 12.810, whatever that language is, that reference is telling you to go back to the statute, to go to a different book, to read the language of that rule. And the reason that's important is because whenever we write rules, we don't duplicate what's in the law. And then we have policies. Policies are created by state agencies, and they provide guidance, provide additional guidance where it's not listed in the law or the rule, and they do not have the same force of law.
So rules in chapter 7, requirements for infection control and prevention. Clean and disinfected implements and materials must be available prior to performing any service to the client. So in chapter 7, area 2, these items are specifically addressing items, work areas, and equipment that need to be cleaned and disinfected before the items are used on a client. Any item, implement, or materials that come into contact with a client needs to be cleaned and disinfected before the use on the next client by following manufacturer's instructions. The specific procedure for cleaning and disinfecting will be provided in policies that have not yet been adopted. So more to come on policies. These are items that are, these are pictures that highlight examples of what we have found in Colorado salons. These are descriptions are clippers that are not ready for use on the clients. So picture 1 shows clipper guards with hair stored, and these are stored without being cleaned and disinfected. Photo 2, these show multiple clippers. These are unclean and stored in a drawer full of debris. And picture 3 shows used clippers, and these are in a this is on a workstation. These have not been cleaned or disinfected. However, they're out ready for use on the next client. So all of these items need to be cleaned and disinfected and properly stored. On this slide, picture 1 and 2 shows a disinfected jar. However, the jar in picture 1, there is contamination, and the items in both 1 and 2 are not completely immersed in the disinfectant solution. Again, these items should have been cleaned prior to disinfecting. Number 3 shows drill bits in a jar that's full of debris. So again, these are used drill bits. And number 4, these show drill bits that are left on the drill. We find a lot of these during inspections where the drill bits are left on the drill and they are about to be ready to be used on another client.
And Kathy, this is Joe again. Just to be clear, those aren't all of this. Those are just examples.
These are just examples, and these are examples of what we find more often. However, we come across combs, scissors. There are lots of items that we find that are being reused without being properly cleaned and disinfected. Cleaning hands. Hands must be cleaned prior to servicing the public. Running water and soap, and drying your hands with a disposable or unused cloth or towel. When it is not possible, hand sanitizer is acceptable so long as the manufacturer's directions are followed. When using the restroom or when hands are visibly dirty, hand sanitizer is not acceptable. Prior to beginning a service on a client's feet or other skin surfaces, cleaning is required. This picture shows debris that needs to be removed before the service is performed. Containers and storage. Trash containers must have solid sides, liners, and a lid. These must be emptied when full and never allowing the lid to be partially opened. You can see the first slide is a clean trash can. You'll notice the trash can on the right is full of items that are sticking out of the trash can, and the trash lid is open. If the trash container is stored in a cabinet or a closed area, a lid is not required. Used linens must immediately be placed in a closed container. Soiled linens must be covered and have ventilated sides to reduce the growth of pathogens. Containers for soiled linens must be cleaned daily and disinfected weekly. Slide 1 shows a dirty laundered sheet left on the bed, and slide 2 shows used implements left on a dirty towel, and we see a lot of these items being used during a service and not being changed out for the next client. So towels your clients need to have a clean towel even with your equipment on it for new use. Each client gets a new towel. Each new client gets a new sheet. Okay, these items should not remain out on your stations. All bottles and containers must be distinctly and correctly labeled to disclose their content. Poisonous or caustic substances must be additionally and distinctly marked and stored in an area not open to the public. Containers that are made of solid sides and able to be disinfected are required for all clean and dirty items. These items must be clearly labeled to have your clean and disinfected items stored. Containers used for temporary use, soiled, or dirty items must be disinfected daily and clearly marked. Disinfected electrical items must be stored in a clean place, such as a stand, hook, or on a clean towel covered by a clean paper or cloth towel. They may not be stored in a container that's labeled clean. Tools and implements may not be placed in or on clothes, aprons, pockets, bags, or holsters worn by the licensee. Single-use items. Items that cannot properly be cleaned and disinfected is considered single-use and must be disposed of after each client. Clients may not keep their own implements or single-use items to bring back. This is prohibited. These are items that we commonly see in the salons. Item number 1, buffers and files. These ones in the photo show that they've been used. These should have been disposed of after the use on one client. Another item seen regularly in the salons is pumice stones. Again, this item needed to be removed and thrown away after the use. Unused, new, single-use items must be stored, covered, and labeled. The picture is an example. Tools contained within a resealed package shall not be used. These are single-use items. Hot towel warmers, this is a new requirement. Licensees preparing towels for warmers must first wash their hands, wear gloves. We ask that you please refer to the new rules for details on daily preparation, disinfection, and storage. Makeup items, we ask that you refer to Rule 7.10. This describes how makeup items are to be used to avoid cross-contamination. Multi-use items need to be cleaned and disinfected prior to each use. Waxing services and pots. Roll-on wax may be used only if a newly disinfected roller is used for each client. There is no double dipping. Please refer to Rule 7.11 for additional requirements. For paraffin wax, Paraffin must be portioned out for each client and disposed of after use. Now, with these photos, photo 1, you can see that sticks are left in the wax pot. Inspectors cannot determine if these are clean or used sticks. The second photo shows debris in the bottom of the paraffin wax. If there's debris in the bottom of the paraffin wax, this is now contaminated. Communicable diseases. Licensees must not perform services on a client who has a communicable disease or contagious condition involving swelling, eruption, redness, bruising, rash, or an open wound or a sore. A licensee may perform services after the client provides written authorization from a licensed physician, physician's assistant, or advanced practice nurse. So with these items, we do get a lot of individuals that have funguses on their toes. We get these that come up quite a bit during complaints where an individual receives a form of a fungus or a licensee may have cut somebody. You cannot work on somebody with these type of conditions, okay? You're exposing risk to the public, and these items can spread throughout onto the next client. When you are coming across an individual that you believe may have something, remember, you are not a physician, you cannot diagnose. You always want to keep it very professional, okay? You want to make sure that, one, when you tell a client that you believe they may have something that could be contagious, that you recommend that they see a physician to make sure that you can perform a service on them, you want to do it in a way that is sincere. You do not want to, for example, run and tell staff members, I believe this person has lice, I believe this person has a fungus. This is something that is can be a problem to the client and can make them very embarrassed. So be careful how you handle these situations. But also be careful as well if you continue the service. We have had lots of salons call in and ask, can I still continue a service once I found out there is lice? That is a contagious condition. You cannot continue the service. So be very careful when you're speaking to your clients about this. Chapter and Rule 8, Prohibited Acts and Scope of Practice.
Am I clear?
We ask that you refer to the statutes for definitions of your license. Okay. We also ask that you refer to Chapter 9 for additional trainings in chemical peels, microdermabrasion, makeup, permanent makeup, electric nail files, and waxing. Please refer to Rule 800 for the medical board for more information on services that must be delegated by an actively licensed physician. This chapter contains details about prohibited practices, items that can't be used for barbering and cosmetology professions. Additionally, it identifies areas of practice for additional training and obtained in Chapter 9. Other requirements include retention of the safety data sheets, so SDS sheets. These are items that we often are not able to find during an inspection. So SDS sheets are a requirement. You are encouraged to read this entire chapter. Chapter 8 is a new item as well. So that's why we also encourage you to read this chapter, because there are new items in this chapter that were not previously identified.
Determining scope of practice. So oftentimes we get a lot of inquiries from licensees of what is within their scope of practice. And we're trying to provide you with the tools so that you could help identify this for yourselves. One of the things that, and we are working on something to release in the future as a resource for you, but one of the things that, these are some of the things that you always want to keep in mind when determining scope, whether something is within the scope of practice for your license or not. The first question is this something that you were trained in school? Is it something that's part of the curriculum that is normally covered in that practice field? Does it fit within the definition of the license type that you hold? And remember, the definitions for each license type is referenced in the law for each license type that we regulate. What is the intent of the service or tool? You have to ask yourself, what type of tool is this? What is it supposed to do? That's the intent. What is the classification of the device? Now we've made it clear that if you use a device that's above a Class 3B device, that constitutes a medical device. So you cannot use, a licensee cannot independently use a device that is higher than that classification. And then lastly, how deep are you penetrating the skin? Regardless of what it is you're doing, how deep are you penetrating the skin? And I apologize, we have a typo there. It's supposed to be penetrating. And then what this chapter also highlights is Rule 8.7 is delegated medical services. And what this rule addresses is when you are under the delegation of medical services, this chapter doesn't necessarily apply to you. And the reason for that is because the medical board does not deem, they recently, if you all listened to the webinar last week, the medical board revised and adopted a rule, their Rule 800, and it made it clear that services that fall within those services regulated by the Office of Barber and Cosmetology and the law are not deemed medical services. Only those that the law for the medical practice defined as medical services can be delegated. Chapter 10, Rule 10, Inspections. This is a brand new chapter, and we created this chapter because there was a lot of interest in inspections and our process and what happens and what can happen to me. So this is still a high-level overview of the fact that inspections will take place at any time or in any area in which services are being provided to the public. And yes, that does include your home if you have a home salon. Registrations and licensees must be provided to the inspectors along with other verification and documentation as requested. An inspector may document the inspection with the use of a camera, video, or any other method. And keep in mind that we oftentimes could send more than one inspector, or more than one person can show up to do an inspection. And keep in mind that a refusal by a registrant or a licensee to open any unlocked area within the licensed area is deemed unprofessional conduct and is a violation. Generally, cooperation is key when inspections are being performed. The inspectors from DORA will always identify themselves and show you identification. If you ever question the legitimacy of the person that is showing up to do an inspection from our office, you can always contact our office directly and find out. The inspectors look at everything. They take pictures, they collect samples, they conduct interviews. So that just gives you a general sense of what inspections cover. And we oftentimes, depending on what type of complaint we receive, those can include inspections on the weekend. Here are some of our bases for inspections, and this kind of gets into the complaint side of it, and we'll probably have to cover the complaint side of it a little bit later because the focus is solely inspections here. But the types of the written complaints that we get include or can include a lot of these things. I'm not going to read each one of them, but you can get a sense of our scope and authority is pretty broad when it comes to the type of complaints that we receive. There are two types of inspections that we perform. Initial inspections, usually that does mean that we have received a written complaint. The director can initiate its own complaint against a registrant or a licensee. The complaints can be anonymous. Anytime we receive anonymous complaints, those anonymous people are not given information as to the progress of a complaint or the inspection or the outcome. So keep in mind that if you are, because you are our eyes and our ears out there, if you do wish to remain anonymous, then you're not entitled to receive information about that complaint. However, if we impose disciplinary action, that action is posted on our website. Then the other type of inspection that we conduct is a probationary inspection, and we look at the number of violations found the first time around compared to the second time around. Has there been improvement? Those kinds of things. So that can happen. And many of you can check on our website to see how many shops are active with conditions, meaning how many shops we have on probation. At this time, we are still working on the violation notice. It is being updated to conform to the new rules and get rid of items that no longer apply. And we will post it so that you are aware of the items that are inspected. We currently have an inspection or a violation notice on our website. So if you wanted to refer to that, you could at this time. One thing that's important to note with any inspections is that we work with other agencies depending on the type of allegations that we receive for a joint inspection. So whether that's the Department of Public Health and Environment, which we consulted with on our infection control rules. It could include the Department of Revenue. It could include Labor and Employment. And that gives you a sense of the agencies that we're involved with. But it could also include law enforcement depending on, again, the type of allegations that are received. Now, many of you often ask, well, what will happen to me if I am found violating the laws or the rules? Oftentimes, when inspections are performed, we issue violation notices on the spot, and there's a fine imposed and usually probation. This just gives you a general sense of the process. With those cases that don't result in a violation notice, we end up floating these matters up through the division director. Matters, we attempt to settle them, and just so that you can think about a scale in terms of disciplinary action, on the low end, we can issue a letter of admonition, and on the high end, it's a revocation or relinquishment. So anywhere in between that scale, the director has the authority to impose discipline according to the way the law is written. If a licensee or a registrant does not accept those terms, we end up sending those cases to the Office of the Attorney General, where they will argue our case in front of a judge. They're called an ALJ, and then they issue an initial decision, and then the director has the chance to issue a final agency action at that time. We are including this slide for the medical board, Rule 800, because we reference it a couple of times in this webinar. Here is the link, and then here, as I mentioned earlier, the rule describes delegated medical services, but it also describes what does not constitute medical services that cannot be delegated. And so hopefully what that shows you is that if there's any services that are being performed by persons, it could in fact be the practice of cosmetology, potentially, depending on what it is. Now we will open it up for questions. I think we have quite a few people on our webinar, so please bear with us. We'll try to get to a lot of the questions as we can, but please note that we will prepare responses to all the questions so that any member who is participating, any licensee who is participating today can see the questions and the answers in the future.
Okay, so the first question I have is, where can I locate the new rule for the hot towels? And that is located in Chapter 7.9. Let's see. Someone had asked, please clarify which of the revised chapters are now published and ready to print and ready to print. And it states that it sounds like all covered today are not yet ready. These are ready on our website at colorado.gov/DORA, or you can get to it from the website listed currently right now on the screen.
And I just wanted, this is Joe again, Ophelia, I just want to clarify. I think the old rules are still on the website,
Yes.
but they're the first ones listed, but the new ones are listed and they say new after them. And shortly we'll be removing the old ones to eliminate that confusion. I think Ophelia just wanted to leave them up for a little while so you could see the contrast, but we will be removing that this week.
This next question we do get quite a bit. Are animals allowed in the salon?
And so the question is, if you did a search in the rules for animals in the salon, you would not find any language that addresses that issue at all in the rules. But I can tell you, if we go and do an inspection and there is dog debris and those kinds of things throughout the salon, and it's not being cleaned up, you as a salon owner or the licensee could be cited for failing to keep the work area clean. Now, one of the things that you are highly encouraged to do is to, especially as a small business owner, is you get to decide how to run your business. So if that's the kind, if you want to say no dogs, no animals allowed, you get to do that. That's the gist of it. But the question then becomes, you have to decide for yourself how you want to operate the salon, and then whether you allow clients to bring them in as well, and then restrictions there. But clearly communicate that with your clients. Oftentimes, that's what it boils down to, is clear communication. We know that in the rural areas that probably happens more, but maybe not. So sometimes,
what about service animals?
so we're asked that question a lot as well, and there is a certain designation for service animals, and they're distinctive, right? You can really see whether that's happening. And so again, you get to decide that on a business level. These rules do not address the prohibition of animals in the salon. What it does address is that you cannot use live animals for services. So you may want to look at one of the chapters, specifically Chapter 8, that addresses that issue.
How is one supposed to disinfect curling or flat irons, and are they hot enough to kill bacteria? A curling iron or a flat iron or any hot tool is not hot enough to kill bacteria. You must follow the manufacturer's directions on how to clean and disinfect your tool. We do not tell you what type of disinfectants to use. That is why it's up to you to follow all the manufacturer's directions to clean and disinfect your item. Another question, do you make random inspections without any complaints?
Yes, the answer is yes, we do. We can sometimes receive information that causes us to do an inspection, whether it's a referral from another division or another section in our division. So oftentimes a common one for us is the massage therapy. A common one for us is the medical world. So yes, we then are the ones that are initiating the complaint ourselves.
And we do see some questions on here that are a little bit more in depth. We will get to those questions, and if there's something that we're not covering that you may be a little confused on, please call our office. But we will post the question or the answers to these questions. But a lot of these are a little bit more in depth.
You want to take any over the phone?
Yeah, let's take some over this one.
We have Carissa. Carissa, you're unmuted. Carissa, are you there? All right, we'll move on. We'll move on to Michelle Haro. Michelle? Michelle, are you there?
Go ahead, Michelle.
I guess not.
All right, we'll come back if your hand is still raised. Susan Matthews. Susan?
Susan?
We can hear you that you're there, but we can't hear your question. Susan?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to lower everybody's hands. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand at this point.
Well, he's doing that, and that's clearing up. We have another question. For my in-home nail salon, what areas are inspected? My whole house or just where my nail salon is? Typically, it's only going to be the salon area. There's no reason for an inspector to go through your entire home. It'll be the area in which you're servicing the client.
And while we're on that topic about home salons, there's a different chapter that addresses the registration requirement of home salons. So stay tuned for another specific webinar on that that we will just be posting on our website.
Let's try Michelle again. Michelle, go ahead. Michelle, you want to unmute it? All right, we'll try Sharon. Sharon, go ahead, you're unmuted.
Hi, so with waxing, can we have an open receptacle next to our table and put the wax stuff in there for that immediate client, and then after that client, wrap up that bag and throw it into our closed receptacle?
I don't see why you couldn't.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, go ahead, you're unmuted.
Did we just do Michelle or not with somebody else?
We've done Michelle a couple times, yeah. So I've unmuted everybody again. Unmuted everybody.
What other questions are there?
Let me go to Rhonda. Rhonda,
Okay, there
go
we
ahead.
go. Yes, hi. I have a question. I'm going to use combs as an example. I'm a salon owner, cosmetologist. So when I'm understanding about the containers being specifically marked clean and dirty. When typically my combs that have already been cleaned are sitting in the barbicide container with the barbicide, and that's usually how they've been stored in the past over histories of use. Are you suggesting now that these clean combs should be taken out of the disinfected and then placed in a container that is clearly marked clean, and then when I go to use them on a client, I should be pulling them from my clean storage and not directly out of my barbicide container?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
One of the interesting things, and not that I pretend to know the history of how the barbicide container came to be, because barbicide, many of you know that brand,
Right.
is I think a lot of people were under the misimpression that you leave it in there long enough, it'll kill anything. Well, that's probably true, but it will also destroy your tools. So the key piece throughout a lot of these revisions that we made in the rules is you need to be following your manufacturer's directions on the disinfectant as well, because I doubt that it says leave it overnight.
I think just as a history of use, I mean, that has been the common practice for, I've been in the business since the 80s, and that has been, you know, you get into habits, I guess, and sometimes we can get into, I guess, unknown that our habits are wrong. So that's why I thought that question was important to like clarify specifically. So if an inspector was to come into the salon, you would expect to see clean combs in a clean container dirty combs in a dirty container, but you would not be cited if you had combs sitting in your disinfectant, because obviously they need to be disinfected for a period of time, I'm assuming.
And the answer to that will depend on how does the disinfectant look, because in some of the pictures that we looked at, clearly clearly what we see in salons is that we always think about it in a two-step process. And so whenever we see debris forming in the barbicide or the tool not being fully immersed, that tells us that the person doesn't know or hasn't read how to actually clean and disinfect that tool, because they're only following a one-step process. They're finishing using it on the client, putting it in the disinfectant, and then if we raise the little inside part of the disinfectant up and we see debris on the bottom, that tells us no one has cleaned the tools first.
Oh, yes, I get what you're saying.
Yes, which is typical of what we see in hair salons, barbershops. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We're trying to really keep it simple. So if you want to have this really complicated system, you could, but recognize that with a lot of these rules put in place, anytime we're talking about licensure and even these cleaning and disinfecting rules, it's the minimum standard. So if you want to have a higher standard for your salons out there, more power to you. But we're not going to write the rules to a higher standard. We're writing them to the minimum standard.
Are you, when you say a higher standard, are you referring to like having some sort of an infrared, technology type thing, or where they're actually put into some sort of electrical apparatus that is sanitizing them?
No, not necessarily. What I'm referring to is if you wanted to go to an extreme and have stations set up that you have one box that has your clean items, another one that has dirty, another one that has, however your stations are set up, but you were really, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, we do get a lot of salons that take extra steps and extra precautions to separate their tools and their items to where it's a little extreme, but in a sense it's a good extreme when we see it. But that's completely up to that salon or spot to take that extra step. So in some cases they have a whole entire area dedicated to almost like a system. This is where all your clean your items, and there it's described, and then disinfecting, and then they have a tub, and then, it's like a little work area for this whole entire process to take place, and that's what they chose to do for that salon setting. So there are different requirements, especially when we go to salons that have corporations, that they require additional ways for an item to be clean and disinfected that meet our minimum requirements, but it also goes a little bit above and beyond.
Yeah. So it would meet the corporate standard as opposed to our rule standard. And while you raised the question about the UV light boxes, the rules specifically say that you're prohibited from using those. You can use them for storage, but they're not adequate for disinfection.
Well, that clears that up.
That could be found in Rule 8.1. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
We did have a question on if we will be discussing the rule changes about reinstating past or dual licenses. There will be more webinars in the future that will not be live, that will be posted, that we're currently working on to go over the reinstatement process, endorsement process, and other items that will be coming up in the future. So keep an eye for those as well. Another individual did ask if we can put up the slide for the medical board. We will show that slide again.
It's because of my computer.
We're having technical difficulties though at the time though, so just give us just 1 minute.
While we're getting that back up, this is Joe Donlin again. Kathy mentioned the additional webinars, and those will probably be shorter. They will be educational webinars that we will post on the website that you can view at any time. They won't have a Q&A session. They will be purely informative. But if there is an area that you would really like to have a short webinar, shoot us an email. Shoot Ophelia or Kathy an email and let us know about that topic, because that helps inform us about what you really need as licensees. So please feel free to give us that input and feedback. And now you have the medical board slide.
Is there any more questions?
Yep.
Online?
We have Janet Wilson. Go ahead, Janet. Janet, you're muted.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, I have a feedback coming on my phone. I'm hearing an echo.
Go ahead with your question.
Okay, I am strictly mobile. I don't have a physical location for a salon. And you had mentioned doing inspections that could include video. If all of my services are performed at my clients' homes, would they have the ability to refuse a video being taken in their home? A lot of my clients are high-end, and that could be tricky.
So that's a very good question. If you are and that's what I was wondering, if you were a mobile unit where you have like a mobile, for lack of a better word, like a van or something that you travel around in, that location needs to be registered and is subject to inspections. We will not, if you are a licensee who is mobile, meaning you do go to your clients' homes, we are not going to go to your clients' homes for an inspection. The issue, if we get a complaint from one of your clients, it will follow our normal complaint process. That means that we will give you an opportunity to respond to whatever allegations are being made against you.
Excellent.
But thank you for asking that question, because that would be very unusual.
Yes, it would be awkward for the client.
And just to be clear, Ophelia, there's nothing in the rules specific for mobile businesses, or is there?
There is.
Okay. And where is that found?
It's in a different chapter.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's why we'll cover
There is. What chapter?
When we cover the registration requirements, so that's chapter 6. It's the registration of places of business. So we'll talk about instances that require, or it will address instances that require registration versus those that do not. But you're using your own license to perform those services on the client. So that's why you're not subject to a separate registration.
Correct. Yes, I remember that was confusing when I started the business.
Yes. Thank you for your question.
We have a couple more if you want to take those down. Sure. Rhonda Colbert. Rhonda?
Hi, just real quickly, I just kind of something sparked a thought in my head. When it comes to, and I'm speaking not only on a more of a consumer standpoint, I know in cosmetology salons, most stylists have their license posted in the area of where they work. But it has been kind of common that I've seen as a consumer when I'm visiting nail salons where those individuals, nail technicians, do not have their individual licenses posted. Has the rules on that changed? Does that need to be visible to the consumer?
The rules have not changed on that, and in fact, it's not a rule. It's a statutory requirement that requires that the shop registrations as well as the licenses be posted. It says conspicuously displayed, and then we defined in our rules what conspicuously displayed means, and that means available for the public. But if you don't see it as a consumer of those services, I would highly encourage you to say, let me see your license, because part of what our mission has been over the past several years in our department has been to educate the regulated community, but at the same time educate consumers so that they could be their own advocates as well. And the licensee should not be afraid to tell the consumer, here's my license number, here's where you can look me up. You know, that shouldn't be an issue. Now, whenever we do inspections, as long as they're able to produce it, then they're not necessarily cited for that. But we're moving in that direction where we're saying it's very clear what the law says, that you have to post the registration or the licenses in public view.
Right, because when you're talking, when there's multiple technicians, but you know, your technician's name is Wendy and you have a good indication that's probably not her real name. I mean, how would you really know the license that she shows you that, you know, you've only known her as one name, but then she shows you another name? Is that really her license, or is that the technician two doors down, you know?
Yes, and oftentimes when we find in those, in that community, they sometimes will have an American name versus their legal name. And they, again, if you get their license number and you can look them up, that's what we encourage you to do. But if you have concerns that it's not the same person, or maybe you're seeing that name in multiple shops and you're seeing different people using that license, then we possibly have a problem. And then maybe you need to, I would highly encourage you to report it to us.
Okay, thank you.
The key thing is being comfortable about it too.
And I would just emphasize, you can also, when you make an appointment, you can always ask for the name of the technician or the hairstylist and look it up on our database before you ever go.
That's right.
People forget about that, and ask for the full name so that you can check it out way before you're even in a situation where you're questioning someone who's about to give you a service.
Yeah, and for those licensees that are out there, you should not be embarrassed to be giving out your license number or your name that's on the license. You should be proud of that, the fact that you are a licensed professional, you have all of these skills. So that's also concerning, is if we get consumer complaints that say, I went to the person and I asked them for their license and they refused to give it to me, then that consumer is thinking, well, you're not a licensee. Mm-hmm. And then they start to have questions about the services at that salon. And you could have avoided that by just saying, here's our licensees. Be proud of that. Display it.
Correct. I agree.
And that also decreases unlicensed practice. The more people ask for those, and the more legitimate licenses are shown, and consumers see that there is a positive reaction to their request and to the licensee, that is a deterrent for the increase that we continually see in unlicensed practice, not just in this profession, but in many professions.
Yes. Thank you for your question.
All right. We have one more.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah Del Duca, you're unmuted. Sarah Del Duca, go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a quick question for you. So I'm fairly newly licensed, and I have an in-home salon because I'm a mom. Is there a prohibited area that you're not allowed to have your little salon? I'll give you an example. My salon right now is technically in my kitchen, but it's like behind a cupboard. Does that make sense?
Our rules don't prohibit where in your home you could have the salon. However, I would encourage all of you, and this is a topic that again will be covered as it relates to that specific chapter, but you may want to check with your local zoning and building department. You may want to check with your homeowners association to make sure that you could even have a business in your home, because there are some places that will not allow that at all. So you want to have all of those licenses ready in addition to having the shop registration with DORA.
Okay, yes, and I actually did that before I even opened. I checked with my city, so I'm good to go there.
Excellent.
Good luck.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said good luck with your new business.
We do have a question. Some of the questions that I'm seeing do not pertain to the chapters we've discussed. We will discuss those later on, for example, registrations, places of business. And if it's something that falls on an application, please contact our customer service providers. I do see a question though, to kind of end things possibly, is if a braider needs to be licensed. We ask that you still, again, please refer back to the statute. This defines what it is that your license covers. Natural hair braiding is not and these individuals do not need to be licensed for natural hair braiding. And again, the statute does define what a natural hair braiding is.
And that law also makes it clear when the person starts to perform. So essentially, they're exempt from needing the license. However, if they start to perform services that become the practice of cosmetology, then they are required to have a license. So again, the statutory language is where you will find that exemption for natural hair braiders.
And I just want to emphasize, we're showing up on the screen right now, that website. If you go to that website, that is a specific website for the Office of Barber and Cosmetology Licensure. And on that website, you will see a section that is called Laws, Rules, and Policies. You have very easy access to the statute, to the rules, and the policies to which Ophelia and Kathy have been referring. So I really encourage you, because this is your livelihood, and it's really important you know the rules of the game. And that is something that people sometimes forget about. And it really is very important for you to go educate yourself. We do summaries, we put stuff on the website, but ultimately it's up to you to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. In addition, I do see some error messages that possibly the Rule 800 website is not coming up. If you go to the colorado.gov/take5 website that's posted, and you go under what we regulate, this lists all of the professions that DORA regulates. You will also be able to find the medical board, and they're, again, going back to what Joe had said, it'll state laws, rules, and regulations on that. If you're under what we regulate, it also goes into your applications, complaints, how to file a complaint. So I highly recommend that if you have not gone to colorado.gov/take5DORA, you go to that website to see all the professions that is regulated, to answer any additional questions that you may have with our rules and regulations, and along with some other professions as well.
And that site also is a very easy, it's geared a lot towards consumers. It's the large consumer website. So please, anyone, refer your clients there so you can help empower your clients as well to look at your licenses, but also look at the licenses of all the people from whom they may be purchasing services. So it's a great consumer website, and our motto is we just want people to take 5 minutes to check, because it can save them a lot of time and money.
Do we have any more?
2 more minutes. Do we have any more live questions?
Yeah, we can go to Ebony, Washington. Ebony, you're self-muted. If you unmute yourself, you can go ahead. All right, we'll try Peggy. Peggy Laverin, you're self-muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I thought we were told earlier in the webinar that there was a distinction in the new rules we were just talking about, that it said the new rule and then the old rule, or maybe it was vice versa. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, can you clarify what you mean?
I thought one of the speakers there was saying that if we look up, someone had asked if these new rules were ready to be printed out. And so I'm pulling them up here because I thought someone had said there was a distinction of there would be the new rules and what the old rules were, so you could tell the difference. And I'm not seeing that. Pull it up.
Are you in the laws, rules, and policies page?
I'm on the Barber and Cosmetology licensure rules. And it's dated effective February 14th, 2018.
Those are the rules that we're talking about. Those are the ones that are effective now.
That's what it says.
And the old ones, yes, and the old ones are, they have an effective date of sometime in 2007.
Okay, so then there isn't a distinction of old versus new to be cleared up later or taken out later, correct?
No, the item that we will be removing from the website is the old rules so that people don't think, so our regulated profession doesn't think that those rules are still in effect. Because there's two links to the old rules and to the new rules. So if you wanted to see the difference between those two, they're out there. But we also had redline versions of these rules as we were developing them and going through the stakeholder process. So what you need to focus on is the ones that have an effective date of February 14th, 2018. Those are the ones that are now in effect.
Okay, I was just comparing what we learned from the two webinars, what they used to be and what they are now.
Yeah, but that's why as we go through the webinar, we're highlighting some of the brand new chapters. We're not spending a lot of time saying this is a change because there was a lot of changes to these rules. We try to make them really much more simple to read, simple to understand. So there was quite a bit of change to highlight, but
Okay.
You can see the redline version that should still be out there actually, if you wanted to see that.
So I just need to go somewhere else to find that particular.
It should be on the main page of our website under other resources. It's
Okay,
a
all right.
stakeholder redline if you wanted to see that.
But you are only, but as of right now, you are only functioning under the February 14th rules.
Correct, correct. Okay, thank you for answering that.
Sure, thank you.
32.
We are now out of time for this webinar. So that will conclude the webinar on these three chapters, 7, 8, and 10. We thank you all for your questions and your participation. Please stay tuned for other webinars that we will post on the website. And again, a reminder that we will post this webinar as well as the one on February 28th to our website, and then the responses and the questions that we were asked so that they're all together in that area in our webpage. Thank you and have a great day.